Listeners, welcome back. It's Megan here, and it's time for my yoga audio. And I've been hoping that you're enjoying the last few weeks of episodes that we've had. 2 weeks ago, we dropped episode 65 with my brother, Rydell Painter, who's a prostate cancer survivor, but he's also doing a lot in community, and he shared a lot about our personal journeys, both separately and together as adults, finding each other as brother and sister. So I encourage you to go back and listen to and share that episode if you haven't yet listened to it. And as well as the previous two episodes was the short audio book and novella Narya, written by who happens to be my husband, Richard Morgan. So I've gotten a little bit of feedback from people about enjoying the audiobook. So I hope you've had a chance to listen. So today we are back with another special guest, and I have Maureen Paley with us today, and she is a financial, life, and career coach and the author of the Financial Autonomy for Women 30-Day Workbook. And she's also the host of Financial Autonomy for Women podcast. She is passionate about supporting self-identified women and helping them to find more clarity, confidence, and peace of mind in their lives. She practices strengths-based, trauma-aware coaching with no shaming ever. I want to emphasize that point because I feel like with money, with a lot of things, that's a topic that comes up a lot. So just know from the outset, that's not where she's going. She believes in and has benefited from the power of women supporting each other to level up their lives, their finances, and their careers. Maureen is a certified professional coach and an accredited financial counselor. She calls Sacramento home, and she is the human to the world's best rescue doggo, Mabel. You can find ways to work with Maureen, including free downloadable resources on her website at maureenpaley.podia.com and her Instagram at Maureen Paley Coach. Maureen, welcome to the show.
Goodness, thank you so much. I just have goosebumps just hearing you introduce me. So thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Oh, me too. I mean, it's funny. A lot of people who come on the show, they're like, we're going to talk about yoga. I don't really do yoga, or I'm not into yoga. And I'm like, for me, the approach is that's how this podcast started, but it's about how yoga, right? Like how integration, how balance, how you show up in the world. That's what I want guests to talk about. So the topic can really be about anything. And I love that yours is focusing on financial wellness. That's always a theme, right? Is focusing on wellness, and financial is part of it. And so many of us, I don't want to say people because it's us too, avoid those conversations.
Yeah.
With money especially. So yeah, you and I first met through Tami Hackbarth's book club. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, because it's pandemic years are all the same to me now.
I think it was last year.
I think so too. Yeah. And we read the Rachel Rodgers book, We Should All Be Millionaires, which I do recommend for people. That was a great read. But I wanted to dive kind of right into having you tell us more about you and how you started on the path to being a financial, life, and career coach. And if there was a catalyst or event that kind of sparked your journey to do this.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the answer is yes to all of the above. There were catalysts along the way, and there were sparks and insights and diversions from a path that I was on that brought me to a brand new path. And even though I was nervous and anxious and didn't know where I was going, I got to the right destination. So I think, looking back, being a coach now and having been, and being I'm also a social work professional, having worked in direct social services for the past 9 years, I think I can actually see maybe where some of those seeds were planted. As a child, I was always interested in people and why they do what they do. and understanding their stories. And I think a lot of that comes from, it's funny. I love people. I really genuinely do. And I feel so lucky to do this work. And I identify as an introvert. So, as an introvert, I also probably do my fair share of listening, right? Because I'm more like doing a little bit more receiving than, processing outwardly. So I think even from when I was a young child, really interested in listening to people, listening to their stories. And I think a lot of that stuck. And so, fast forward through the years, I actually, in my undergraduate life, have a degree in English and philosophy. So philosophy was a great way to ask these big questions and have debates and conversations, and doing a lot of reflection and pondering about what it is that makes us tick as humans. Why do we do what we do? How does the mind work, and how do we work? And the connection between ethics and action, and so on and so forth. So, and then fast forwarding through that, spent a little bit of time as an educator, and then found myself in the financial services industry. I actually worked in global investment management for, I think, about 7 years in New York City, and also in the Bay Area. And then, so like, this is coming from someone who had no background, never took an accounting class, never took an economics class, never took, like, the business was not my thing at all, and neither was finance. And then found myself in it, and really had a good run in financial services, and then eventually saw on the horizon something different. I knew something different was out there, and I knew my time in the industry wasn't much longer. I just didn't know what was next. And I gave myself a lot of just personal space to feel that. And then the next step that I took was resigning from my job in financial services, and committing to a year of volunteer service. And that's actually what brought me to Sacramento.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's what started my my pathway in social work, in working with people directly, and a lot of one-on-one work. So and that, my first position as a volunteer, I was called a personal development coach. So I did a lot of coaching and support work that year. And from there, I stuck with social services work, and I was presented with an opportunity to become a financial counselor and to start teaching financial classes. And then this, like, looking backward, I was like, wait a second, this is actually a really good fit, because I did build all that financial knowledge, and I am curious about people, and I want to help people. So, and I was very much in a mode of service. And so fast forward, I got a master's of social work, and I think this past March, I just finished my life coach training. I've been a financial counselor since 2018, I think, going on 5 years. So yeah, so all these things have been falling into place, and it's, I feel really blessed to have those moments where you start, like, looking back in hindsight, like, all those twists and turns. Wow. And, like, so many things I didn't know that were good, like, why they were happening in the moment. They really did happen. So I know that was a very long answer. Yeah, I think it's an important one, because, again, I think what's remained consistent is I'm really curious about who people are, what makes them tick. And I think also, as someone who started working with people in one-on-one direct service, counseling, coaching, support work, it really made clear that one of my core values is personal transformation, and partnering with people in their process of personal transformation. I consider myself very lucky, and I think that's what part of what I get to do as a coach. I get, like, a front row seat of folks who are grappling with something, and they're in this tension, and the tension can be so informative, and it can be so vital and fertile, that you give it willingness and you give it space, it can actually take you in a whole new direction and, support the transformation. So, yeah, so
But I love that, because that's something I feel like so many of us are afraid of, right? When things are uncertain or there's tension, we automatically kind of go negative, right? Like, oh, that's bad because it's not resolved. But for
yeah,
you to kind of state that in this moment, like, no, this is an opportunity.
yeah.
That is really cool to hear you say that. I love it.
Thanks. And I would, like to add, like when I'm sitting with someone, maybe in a client, in a coaching conversation or what have you, in a supportive role, the message that what I don't do is I'll be like, you should really see this as an opportunity. And let's be
Mm.
positive here. Like, we don't do the toxic positivity stuff. That is not the type of coach that I am. And I don't believe in forcing at all. Like, there's no point in that. That's just a zero sum game. But, when the moments when folks are, feeling that friction and that tension and that discomfort, like, I'm basically just listening and within the space with them. And I just honestly, I get excited because I feel like they are on the threshold of something. There's a threshold, and that's the thing. Crossing the threshold is stressful, and sometimes we don't cross it willingly. Sometimes we're thrown over it. You know what I mean? Like,
You're
so
pushed.
yeah, right. It's like, why do I have to be here right now? Like, how did I get here? But yeah, it's a real privilege to be with people in that space.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, that's golden. I loved how you kind of described that whole process and how you work with people, because I think, you know, the idea of anything financial or surrounding money can feel intimidating to people sometimes. So I think that will be reassuring to folks listening. And one of the things that I love about keeping up with you on social media is that you do these regular kind of bite-sized amounts of financial tidbits that isn't overwhelming. It's everyday practical and useful. So the recent one had stopped my scroll. You know, people say, stop your scroll. It literally stopped my scroll because you were talking about what does the federal interest rate hike mean? Like, what does that mean in your life? How's that going to affect pricing? How's that going to affect your credit card bills? And that I know in your services, you offer also small, medium, and larger size counseling to people depending on what their needs are. And without revealing names, of course, of people, can you give us kind of some examples of what sorts of stories are behind the clients you're working with and how you help them to make the changes that they, I think I said need, but it's more like what they're working towards for their
Right.
financial wellness. Yeah.
Yeah. Great question. So I think, what's interesting, especially when I talk with clients about money, or when any of us talk to each other about money, we're talking about so much more. It's not dollar bills, it's not the hard cash. It's really about, money is tied to our survival. So we feel money things very deeply. Money is also very much tied to our ability to thrive. So we have to meet the survival needs, and then we have an opportunity to get into the thriving. And I would say I've worked with clients who, I'll give you a few examples. Some clients have never felt like they're in the driver's seat with their money, like maybe ever, or for a lot of their adult lives. Maybe they're in a partnership, or maybe it just wasn't, they didn't see it as important or necessary. So there comes a time where it's like, oh my goodness, I've worked with clients who are like, I don't even think about this stuff, and I need to start thinking about it. So there can be those, like, it hasn't been a priority and it hasn't been on my radar. It's not something I'm intentionally in touch with in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see that I want to be and I need to be. So in those cases, I mean, it's about like, okay, well, where's the best place to start? Like, going through your everyday life, and how you engage with money, how you earn it, how you spend it, how you save it, how you borrow it. What of those areas, how do you want to feel in those areas? So kind of understanding like, what is the goal? How do you want to feel with your money in your activity with it? That's an example of something I might work with a client on. And then it can go like, if that client says, I want to really work on my debt. And then we can get into like technical stuff of, okay, so let's run your credit report. Let's take a look at the debts. Let's take a look at what kind of debts they are. You know, are they current, are they paid on time? And do we, you know, is that, do we have, where do we need to start? Basically, it's like, if they're delinquent, do we need to get them on time? If they're on time, do we need to pay a little more to pay them down faster? So on and so forth. And all the while in those discussions, you know, having, it's interesting, like the external hard money discussions, like this is how much this is costing me, this is how much this is going to save me if I change this behavior, weighing pros and cons. And then also recognizing all the internal things that are going on, you know, especially if for a client that comes to me and says, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I realize it's really going to be in my interest if I start to understand what the heck all this means. Can you help me? You know, when we learn a new thing, we're in a very vulnerable position. So I'm also paying attention to like the vulnerabilities that are there, and maybe some of the trauma that brought on the vulnerabilities, or the, you know, the softer side of things that aren't, it's not the hard money, right? It's not like doing the math on something, but it's like there's an internal piece of work that that person is doing, and just being vulnerable and bringing themselves to those sessions. So that's an example, like of a one way into a financial conversation. There's other clients I've worked with who have decided to leave their employer and launch their own business, and being with them in the process over months, supporting them and navigating that. Not so for me, what I don't do as a coach is I don't say, okay, you need to do this, right? I don't prescribe. I listen and I ask good questions, and that creates a conversation where that client can identify, okay, like these are the administrative things I need to do to set up my business, and now these are the mental, emotional, psychological things I'm dealing with in the excitement, in the stress, in the anxiety, and the vulnerability of launching. And how am I taking care of myself, and maybe even setting some goals around that. I'm a big fan of, I'm always going to be a fan of, let's make a list, let's do everything on the list, let's get it done, right? And it's interesting because like that's not always what coaching is. And that's why I love coaching. So it's like, I was actually a coaching client. There's a coach friend that I have. Her name is Casey Lipka. She's a musician. But basically I walked into the coaching session. I was the one being coached, and I was like, I'm going to come out of here with lists of things to do and numbers to hit and so on and so forth. And she coached me into, oh, I need to plan a vacation. Or, you know, that's what the session brought up. So I bring up my story, my experience, to share that some coaching sessions are about the hard tasks, and some are about being in the moment and letting our minds and our desire grow, and letting our truth kind of also come into the mix, until we get to a place where it's like, you know what, this, like more so where like intuition can come forward. This is what I need to do next. Actually, I don't need to do this next. This is what I need to do next. So there's so many different ways to work with clients, and a lot of it is the unique needs of the client, their unique values and desires, and then where that coaching session takes us, that really informs. What I always want the client to know is that they're in the driver's seat, and I'm maybe in the passenger side,
Mhm.
listening, asking questions.
Uh, no, that's good because then it helps kind of direct your expertise, but in responding to what the client's needs
Right.
are. And that I imagine it kind of ebbs and flows in terms of like directives and lists and hey, let's
Yeah.
think about this. And I would imagine one of your challenges and specifically working with female identified clients is that there's gender stereotypes around money, of course, and the
Oh, yes. Hmm.
outdated notion, right, that women need someone else to manage their money. So I was so astounded to learn in recent years that it wasn't till the mid 1970s that women in the United States could open a bank account or get a credit card in their own name. In Canada, where I grew up, it happened a little earlier in 1964, but still collectively that's kind of there's still a generation of like middle-aged women right now
Yeah.
who are the first to have so-called equitable access to financial resources.
Hmm.
And I think about that and I'm like, well, it's not even one generation yet. So culturally and socially,
Yep.
lending patterns, practices, approval rates probably still reflect outdated thinking. So just curious kind of your thoughts on that. What
Hmm.
might you have experienced yourself or through, stories you've heard from clients?
Hmm. Yeah, great point. Yeah, and in the 1970s and the 1960s aren't that long ago. I think we need to remind ourselves of that women's, and this is something I talk about quite a bit, financial autonomy. Women's financial autonomy is a fairly recent phenomenon. And as we all know, there are threats to all of our autonomy, but our bodily autonomy, so on and so forth. So um, our financial autonomy is part of our work for equity and part of how we can hold power in society in a balanced way, in a way that we haven't been able to hold. So yeah, there's the our gendered conditioning, you know, brings up a lot of things, right? Anxiety around money conversations, hesitation asking for a raise or negotiating a higher salary. There's some studies that say that women don't do it at the rate men do, and there's some studies that say women do it at the rate men do, they just don't get it. The motherhood tax, the motherhood penalty, mothers sometimes have to leave the workforce to care for to be the primary caregiver, and then when they come back to the workforce, they've missed out on growing their salaries, and so they get the lower pay. So in addition to that, right, we know that on average a woman makes 82 cents where a man makes $1. That is a persistent pay gap that is not resolved. Like, it needs to be resolved, period. And then what happens also, so there's like this, I think there's just this knock-on effect of gendered conditioning and what's expected of women and women's gender roles and cultural norms around gender roles that leads into this persistent dollar value inequity in pay that eventually becomes a capital inequity in retirement capital. So it's not just a pay inequity, it's a wealth inequity. So essentially, our male counterparts aren't just making more than us. They are building more wealth than us. So there's a lot of forces at work, obviously. And to add, it's even more egregious for women of color.
Mhm.
It's even lower. There's more of a gap and there's more of a persistent gap. So we have a lot of forces at work that haven't been resolved yet. And what I try to emphasize is, all right, there are these forces at work that mean that our autonomy is still compromised in some way. So autonomy for me equals choice and control, being in the driver's seat, right? And feeling good about being in the driver's seat, especially with your financial decisions. So when we may not have the control that we want, that's equitable control. But what I want to emphasize and, advocate for is, here's the things we can control. So how do we control those to our greatest benefit? And that's often what I try to do. That comes up even when I'm working with women on their job search goals. When I do job coaching, writing your resume writing can be hugely emotional for some people because it literally is a value statement. In 1 to 2 pages, this is what I'm worth, and please pick me. When you boil it down, it's really intense. And so it's like, what can we control in this document that can create the best opportunity for you to be a dollar for dollar with your male counterpart? And not to say that women aren't the people, like the onus isn't on women to fix the pay gap. There are many people who have that responsibility, and a lot of it has to come with policy making, like really significant policy making needs to happen. But I'm looking at it as, what can we control here? What do we know about our gender roles and gender norms and gender conditioning? We're not giving ourselves the credit we deserve, because we're also in positions where we're working in jobs where we're not getting the credit. Our male counterparts might be taking the credit. I think women-led startups, they outperform their male peers, but they get less funding. So it's like, what needs to move here, right? So as a coach and as a support person, I want to be with the women in that journey. It's like, we've got these forces, we've got these headwinds, and that means our control, we're not fully, we want to get to the full control and the full equity. So let's focus on what we can control to make sure that we get as close as we can. And that's the gender norms around money, man, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and then also our sense of deserving, like women, we don't ask for what we're deserved. We may not advocate for ourselves because it's not nice, it's not pleasant, it's not it's not expected, it's not what nice women do, so on and so forth. So those expectations, whether they're conscious or not, they are baked into our behaviors and into our choices. So I'm looking for ways to work with women to, let's maybe unravel this just a touch. Let's see what's actually happening here. And for us to also have shame around having money conversations. Like, where does that shame come from? Does that shame come from, well, I'm not supposed to talk about that, I'm just supposed to kind of accept what I'm given, and I'm not supposed to talk about the salary that I really deserve. I'm not supposed to ask for that when I really do deserve it. Also, women are told, hey, be the perfect domestic goddess and have it all at the same time, and and do all the self-care and
never sleep again.
Money and manage your family's, but not just your money, your whole family's budget. Do all that and, don't miss a beat type of thing. So there are a lot of forces at work. And I do think what I try to do is support women in controlling emphasizing the things that, based on our gendered conditioning, we may not emphasize. Stepping into those territories where we're doubling down on ourselves and, managing imposter syndrome. We don't have to banish it completely, but we can manage it, and we can practice having conversations, and we can say, yep, I am anxious having this conversation around money. I'm anxious going into this negotiation, and I'm going to do it anyway.
It's like assertiveness. I think that's like the word that comes up, that we don't want to be perceived sometimes as this person. And a friend of mine recently reminded me of a statistic that when jobs are posted, that typically a lot of women or minority BIPOC backgrounds won't apply unless they meet absolutely 100% of every criteria. And I'm going through a full-time work change, and I sent this job to my friend, and she's like, why are you even asking me? You were like 150% qualified for this. I'm like, okay, but I just wanted somebody else to look at it and tell me that. And she's like, but you can read it just as well as I can, like, right? But there's whatever, like you said, whether it's conscious or unconscious, you're just like, but still, like, am I okay to do this? And I'm like, wow, how old am I going to be before I'm really gonna like believe 100% in my capabilities, right? And I think it's partially performative, but I do notice that a lot of companies put that statement in there now, right? Saying like, we encourage you to apply even if you meet 50% of the things or whatever. But it's kind of getting over that hump of who am I to apply for this, right?
Yes. Who am I? Who do you think you are? Who do I think I am? And then, running through all those, the committee in your head, has to weigh in on it. We have a bigger committee and a louder committee, I think, than as women than maybe our male counterparts do. They have a committee as well, for sure. Going for the job and, having the audacity to just go ahead and take that step. We tend to plan and maybe second guess, and I don't know. And like, we need an extra, we might find ourselves in situations where it's like, I need a little bit more affirmation just to feel good about doing this. And hey, that's okay too. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't all have to, everybody listening, I don't expect them to like get to the end of this podcast and be like, I'm going to go apply for that job. I'm going to do this. But I think it's putting it in the context of, you're not alone. This is part of our conditioning. And this is why, part of the reason why I work with women exclusively, it's like, when women get together to support each other, for me, it's like, that's a sweet spot, that it's like sky's the limit on how we support each other and encourage each other to get through those sticky parts.
Yeah. Well, that's a statistic, no matter what area of the world that you work in, or women always return their capital back into their own communities. Always. They always invest back, whether it's emotional labor, physical labor, or actual capital. It's like usually all three, but at least one, right? That the double back is, this is going to benefit you to do that. And I'm wondering if, because I know you've been working as a financial coach for many years, have you noticed trends over the years? Like, I know the economy and the market are always like up and down and things are changing, but like how it specifically was impacting women, say at the beginning of your career, and then kind of what you've noticed happening lately. Have there been any big shifts, or have kind of the same patterns like continued to emerge?
Well, I think, we still have to advocate. We have to develop a certain level of comfort and confidence in our advocacy for ourselves. We still have to work on that in a way that self-identified men, I don't think, have to work on, because we face those headwinds of the systemic inequities, right? So we still have to do that. The wage gap and the wealth gap are still persistent. I think one thing that I'm really enjoying lately is, in regards to personal finance, especially, is, I think one of the first financial presentations I went to, I was like 22 or 23, and it was like my first job out of college, and and I had a retirement fund, and I don't even know what the heck,
That
like,
was.
as a 20-year-old, they're at like 22. I'm like, retirement. Yeah. I'm just trying to like figure out how I'm going to pay my student loans, and my car's about to fall apart and I probably need to go buy a new one. Like, it wasn't on my radar, but I had some type of like a conference as part of the work I was doing. And I got to go to a panel called The Latte Factor. And it was a financial advisor from one of the financial firms. But basically it's crunching the numbers on if every day you went to Starbucks or your favorite coffee shop and bought yourself a latte, the amount of money you'd spent over a year, and then taking that amount of money and saying, look what happens instead if you invest it. It's really about getting to the messages. You put your money in one direction, maybe out of habit, and you can actually make a decision to put your money in towards a different direction. And that choice is something where compounding of investments happens and you can actually grow capital. So that was the whole story there, which was very useful. But I think I've really enjoyed these past few years and following the people I follow on Instagram, and really women who are financially autonomous and who are financial coaches and financial thought leaders. They're like, I'm buying the latte. You know, like it's kind of like a shaming. Oh, you women in your lattes, you women in your
Mm.
handbags and your shoes and so on and so forth. It's like, you know what? I earn the money and I get to decide how I spend it. So, and that's another thing that I like, I've really enjoyed watching, like, kind of the tables get turned a little bit on the kind of backhanded backdoor shaming that goes on with personal finance guidance, the old school stuff. And enjoying watching women thought leaders kind of claim, I'm doing this with my money. You know why? Because I made a plan and I made it happen and it's my choice. And so that's what I'm going to do. So that's something that I've noticed, I think, shift in the past few years, like a lot less shame, like, or less us not tolerating those backdoor shaming attempts. Like, if someone comes to me and we're working together on financial coaching and they are spending $8 at Starbucks every day, I'm not going to tell them to stop doing that, but we're going to talk about it for sure. You know what I mean? That's the thing. If this is where the money's going and you also have this goal, how are we going to make both of these things coexist? Or what, what's going to, we know what results you're getting now. What are the results you want to get and what needs to change to get there, type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I've really enjoyed. I bought a house myself last year. I had actually had my first year anniversary as a homeowner just last week, and yay, thank you. And I think I'm also the pace at which single women buy homes is greater than single men. So that's something that's really good to see, that I think a lot more women are stepping into that market and making that decision, which is a big decision too.
It is. That was something I was going to ask you about, to your real estate experience. So I'm glad that that you brought that up, and just, to offer your congratulations on,
Thank you.
on that. Because I feel like it's stressful to buy any large purchase, like a car or a home
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever. And so
Accurate. Yeah. I think for me personally, I think I was like pointing myself in the direction of home ownership for a long time, like for probably 10 years, but not necessarily, like, again, I working in financial services, and then I left to be a volunteer, and then I started working in social services. So I had some big income shifts. But I laid a foundation for myself that I managed to hold on to, and thinking, this is what this money is going to be for. This is going to be down payment. This is going to be, and then finally getting to the point where I think there was, readiness on all levels. Like I was psychologically ready to take this on. I was emotionally and financially, and really big decision. And I'm really grateful that, part of it, I just had to take a first step. When I was first thinking about it, it was like, oh yeah, I want to do that eventually. I want to do that eventually. I want to do that event. And if we can want to do things forever and ever and ever, and we're never going to get them done. But I actually sat down one day and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go on to Golden One, and I'm going to apply for a home loan, or I'm going to fill out their form.
Yeah.
And that was like just the thing that I just needed to do one thing to get the ball rolling. And then I got an understanding of what I needed to make it happen. And then I started taking steps to make that happen. And then I found an awesome local realtor named Community Rose. Well, her name is Rose Cabral, but her handle on Instagram is Community Rose. Got connected with her, and was able to, she just created this great experience for me, especially as a single woman. Because I know that you and I have talked about this, like, as women, when we go make these big purchases, we're often looked at like, okay, well, where's the husband? Where's the boyfriend? Where's the brother? Where's the father? Where's the man who makes these decisions, right? So fortunately, in my home buying decision, I worked with Rose, and Rose's whole, one of Rose's niches is helping single women and other folks that have been traditionally marginalized from the home buying process feel good about the home buying process and know that they can do it. So like when I talked to Rose, there was no like, where's the boyfriend? Where's the husband? It was like, she just like she's like, yeah, let's do this. She just kind of set this up. Now, if I had gone to another realtor, I think I would have had that experience of, well, you can't be the buyer. Um, you know, so I'm lucky. I think I had a good realtor who gets it as well. But yeah, you bring up a really good point about big purchases, purchases that also involve financing. And the comment that you made a few minutes ago about it was just in the 60s and 70s that we could open bank accounts and that we could take out a line of credit. Hasn't been that long that women could take out a line of credit on their own without a man co-signing. So, there's that systemic leftover that has realtors or contractors or car salesmen or whomever talking and saying, is your husband here? Because it hasn't been very long that we've been able to do financing on our own and credit on our own.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I grew up, I remember going as a kid to get my first bank as a child.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, I've never lived in a world where you couldn't go and open up a bank. Right. So I think about all of the, older women in my family and like what I mean, in much of our history, when you go into that, like a marriage was a contract to like financially take care of this person. Yes. 100 years ago, it was rarely about, falling in love, and which is, sad because that's our standard today, but there is still a financial component, I'm sure. Yeah. That's like, I feel like that could be a whole episode on its own, just like the emotional and the capital losses that women experience when either they're not in a partnership or a partnership falls apart. And like you said, if they've been, and I've heard this story from many people, both, personally and more peripherally, where they've been in a partnership for 30, 40 years and were working at home. They were, homemaking. Yeah. And if the marriage dissolves or the partner passes away, like they're left in a precarious situation, because if they haven't been in the workforce and haven't taken out a line of credit on their own, like it's really Yeah, not to dwell in any of that, because I know what you do is help people
Right.
specifically in that situation and other situations. Like there is a way out of that, but like 100 years ago, there wouldn't have been. You would have just had to get married again.
Yeah.
To-
My God.
like when I think of that as our legacy, I'm like, oh, yeah,
Yep.
this is why
Yeah.
we're still here.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think there's little whiffs of that show up, even today, as we have far more rights than we did. Yeah, I've talked with women lately who have experienced the kind of later in life big life change or life shift
Mhm.
in and around partnership that has been um even more challenging than just a life change would be. Life changes are hard, divorces and losing a partner or what, it's already hard. And then you've got financial aspects involved anytime those things happen. Any big life change, there's going to be a financial shift as well. That's also what I talk to clients about a lot. Any life change will have a financial shift. And I think as women, we certainly don't want to think the worst or be pessimistic, or I should say, and we want to make sure that, again, I think being the captain of your own ship and being in the driver's seat and feeling good about your decisions can really lay a strong groundwork that can, protect you in the event that you need the protection, or maybe you don't. But I think the key is not so much you're going to need that protection, but am I feeling good about what I'm doing with my money, with the money, and how I interact with it?
Oh, that's such a yogic right from the inside out.
Right.
Right? So
Mhm.
trusting yourself,
Yeah.
it's partly intuition, partly practical skills,
Yes.
all
Yeah.
of that intertwined. I love it. I love it. I just got like little chills thinking about that. Because I'll tell people all the time, oh, I have this guest coming up, and they're kind of like they immediately go to physical yoga. And I'm like, but it's all these other branches
Yeah.
of things of wellness.
Yeah.
Um, I know there's 100 financial things you could talk about, but what are kind of some of the like key takeaways, financial lessons, knowledge? Um, and I know it's not from a shaming perspective at all. You emphasize that a lot, but things that you wish more women were aware of or
Mhm.
practiced in their lives, like kind of a few simple takeaways from
Mhm.
today.
I think it would be great. Like, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is wealth building and what that involves. And also, it's not as scary as it sounds. If you're someone who's easily intimidated by financial stuff, and I often remind people, finances, wealth, money, etc., it's a language. And so what happens when we learn a new language? If I'm practicing Spanish, I've been working on my Spanish for a couple of years. If you drop me in Mexico City and left, I would be like trying to make my way through and sputter out some things and start sweating and feel scared and probably start crying and not, overwhelmed. But if I was immersed there for a while, eventually I'd start speaking the language, right? And but I'd get more confidence. So um building wealth, I think, is, we don't tell little girls, hey, you're going to go build wealth someday. You're going to go, you are going to go have a positive impact on the economy in your community. Um, you're going to do great things that fill your heart, and you're going to lift others up economically while you do it. Like, these are messages we don't send little girls. And I think all of those messages are really wealth building messages. And partly because we don't send little girls these messages, they grow up to become women. And then it's like, and there's some other reasons for this, I think, but we we have to learn the language of investing and wealth building um, it probably takes us a little bit longer to learn the language and then also to feel confident in it. So sometimes it's like, well, I don't know that language. Like I don't know German, so I'm just not even going to bother trying to talk. You know what I mean? Right? Like we'll just avoid rather than immerse and get exposure and talk to people who know things and get good advice. And also be fairly skeptical. Like, you got to be careful when people are offering financial advice because they usually want you to pay for it. You know what I mean? So it's like, just be careful about that. But I would say for women to be a bit more willing to enter into areas that they don't think are for them. And one of those, I would say the prime area would be wealth building. And there are ways to generate and build wealth. Wealth is a long game. It is a long game. And the more time you have, the more it works to your advantage. So if you're a younger woman listening to this, you've got a bigger advantage than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's approaching financial topics that seem really out of bounds and being willing to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
Which takes some vulnerability, and you're going to have to ask for support. You're going to have to find the right people and the trustworthy people to listen to. And then you're going to have to make some decisions for yourself. How do I invest so that I build wealth? How much do I contribute to my 401k or my 403b? Let me pull up the investment calculator and see how much I need to contribute every month and how much it needs to grow that's, I think, the spirit of captaining your ship. You eventually, you may not know what you're doing when you're up there at the wheel at first, but eventually you learn. And so it's kind of like the repeat. And yeah, I think to step into that place of willingness, it doesn't matter if you don't get it at first, you can get it.
Like anything. I was talking with another friend this week whose teenager is learning to drive, get to do their driver's test, and it's like having had two children go through this too. I was like, I rode with them each once before they got it, and I was like, I can't fulfill this part of my parental duties because I'm just gonna have a meltdown in the car and we're all gonna die. But it was like with practice, right? Like now they're great drivers. Like we all eventually, right? With practice. I love the metaphor of captaining your ship. It's true. We have to look at it like a practice, like anything else. You don't know anything about anything the first time you try something. And so, yeah, we have to give ourselves the break to and the freedom to be able to learn, the courage to go forth.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Well, I was going to say, you don't have to be an expert right away. You don't have to, you're not going to be an expert and you're not going to be competent right away, but you can take the baby steps to become more competent and confident and feel better. And then you'll be an expert. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, I wondered if I could kind of interrupt our financial flow for a moment.
Oh, please.
To get you to respond to one of our moth story prompts.
Oh, yes.
For those of you, I try to remember listeners on every interview to ask the person, but sometimes we get so into the topic and then I forget, but I like to kind of throw in a wild card from the moth storytelling card deck, just to get the guests to talk about something. It can be related or not to the main focus of our discussion today. So I'm just like blindly reaching over here into the deck and finding one. Oh, okay. So tell us about, okay, there's two sides to the card. So tell us about a time you were changed by the journey or the destination, or a time you hit a dead end, or a time you didn't follow the map, and roads. Like I guess that's like as a symbol. Prepare a story about boulevards, country trails, or 5-lane freeways, asphalt, gravel, or dirt. Tell us about blazing your own path or letting the GPS do all the work. Rumble strips, road trips, traffic jams, wayward hitchhikers, or bus tours. Getting lost or being found. Life is a highway. Oh, as a Canadian, Tom Cochrane's Life is a Highway. Oh my gosh. That came out the first year I was in university, and every time I hear it, I remember the exact moment I heard it.
Oh, cool. Wow. Oh my God. I feel like this is so, because I'm all about journeys,
Mhm.
and this is what makes me, I'm so curious about people and what their journeys have been and why, what was that like and how did that work out? And, also where are you going next? So for me, that's so interesting. I think the jobs that I've had, the careers that I've had have been the big like, oh, there's a detour here, right? Like I'm one shot and then a big old
Yeah.
detour. Yeah, and I think part of that is and I don't know if I ever had the clarity that I just never was one of those people that like had the clarity, okay, I'm gonna be an elementary school teacher when I grow up. And that is what I know. I'm doing it. I've never had that clarity. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to try jobs and see how they work. Some came more naturally than others. Some man, what I lacked in natural talent, I made up for in hard work, I think. And yeah, I think, I mentioned it before, but it's like a undergrad, started as a bio major at orientation, actually changed my major to English and then brought up a philosophy minor and then went and got a grad degree in Irish literature and then
Yeah.
became an educator and then went into financial services and then went into social work. And then, now I'm a small business owner, financial coach, life coach, career coach. And those were all like looking back now, yeah, it's like, wow, what a bunch of detours. And I didn't have that straight freeway, straight shot, it was, um, and I also think, when I sit with clients and I hear about what they're going through and what they want to work on, and especially around the career coaching, it's like, when they tell me they've had all these different jobs and have done all these, I'm like, yes, I'm
Yeah.
like, there is so much we can work with here. Like you are so like, or, yeah, they're deciding that they want to make a big change. They're having a little bit of a detour as well. So, um, yeah, I think, most obviously, I think when I look at my work life and what I've done in my jobs, those are where the journeys got interesting.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
nothing, I feel like no experience or education is ever wasted. I've
No.
I've
Oh,
been the
I totally
same.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just like, oh, okay, I learned working somewhere for a year or wherever it was that was definitely not for me. But you know what? I met like 20 really amazing people who are,
Yeah.
I still really want to work with, whatever. Like maybe that specific job wasn't what I
Yeah.
needed to be doing, but it was still a really valuable
Yeah.
experience. And I used to feel really bad about it. And there's this TED talk. I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but not for probably a year or so.
Hmm.
I need to find it and maybe put it in the show notes. And it's this woman who went viral. There's like over 1 million hits when I watched it, and it was a few years ago. And she would beat herself up saying like, why can't I be that person who know I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, or I'm going to be a teacher, right? Like you said. And she's
Uh-huh.
like, I just didn't have that. It was like, oh, I want to try this. And then she realized after, a dozen years of doing that, no,
Hmm.
but this is what my journey is to try all these things to figure out how I can help people. And then look at your toolbox, your knowledge base, right? Of all the things you've done, all the things you've learned, all the people you've met.
Yeah.
That's not a failure. That's
Yeah.
giving you tools to do more of the work you need to do in the world. I'm so glad to hear you kind of expand on that for you personally, because I think there's more of us out there that have taken that windy journey than the straight shot.
Yeah, the straight shot really isn't the story. And, you know, the winding way, I think, is, man, it has proven to be very interesting and very surprising, maybe unnerving and really uncomfortable at parts. Like, give me a break already. But this is, my dog is visiting me right now.
Oh, beauty. Hi,
Yeah,
Mabel.
but I think those are the really interesting parts. There she
Oh,
is. That's
oh,
Mabel.
Mabel. Hello. My Frida is behind us. You may hear her or not. I'm not sure. She's snoring to beat the band, but she is asleep behind me
Yeah.
there on the bed. Well, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about, because I know people can go to your website, but I know you have like 6 week, 3 month, even 6 months financial coaching services.
Mhm.
I don't know what's like your elevator pitch on those, and like it kind of sounds a little bit like, depending on where people are on their own financial journey, that
Indeed.
will fit different needs.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's so many ways that we can work together. So as you mentioned, I offer coaching packages, 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. Um, the longer the longer the commitment, I think, the more like exponential changes that happens for somebody. And that would be a biweekly one-on-one hour-long Zoom session. So you can do it anywhere. And then on the off weeks, I will send that client a check-in email. And during the actual meeting that we have, the one-on-one Zoom session, one of the questions I ask towards the end is, hey, I'm going to be emailing you in a week. What is it that you want me to include in that email? What reminders are you going to need? What little piece of like juice are you going to need in that email to feel good about the pathway that you've laid out in between meetings, basically?
Mhm.
So that's a lot of fun too. And then so that's coaching. So that's financial and life coaching. One thing I'm super excited about is on Wednesday, June 14th at 5 p.m. Pacific on Zoom, I'm teaching a masterclass. And that is for women only, of course. And the title is Know Your Worth, Finding Your Financial Voice. And
Okay.
yep, and it'll be about an hour and a half masterclass. Early bird pricing is going on right now. It ends May 31st, but the class itself is Wednesday, June 14th. And for participants that join, they'll get a free copy of the Financial Autonomy for Women 30-day workbook, and also complimentary access to my values-based decision-making course that's specifically for women. And in that masterclass, we're going to talk about a bunch of things. We're actually going to learn how to calculate net worth and create a plan for how we want our net worth to look like, why it's important. Practicing financial scripts for negotiating a raise or a higher salary, or also negotiating a higher pay at a job offer. And also, I call it flipping the script on the money stories that we have. We're going to learn how to identify some money scripts we've got going on and how we can change them into affirmations. Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm really excited about the masterclass, and I hope I've just launched it. I just opened it yesterday, so it's going to be open right up until the 14th. So
okay, cool.
and you
This episode's dropping the 26th, May 26th. So
okay, good. So
everybody
they'll still
listening, yep.
have, yeah, they'll still have early bird access. And then after the masterclass, I think I'm going to put together a summer session for financial coaching, where it'll be I'm still working out the details, but I think it'll be about 2 live coaching calls or 2 live sessions per month. And then people can opt in for a 20-minute one-on-one laser coaching session to keep them on track during that month. So more details about that. And then I also offer resume cover letter writing services, partnering with you in updating that resume, writing a whole brand new one, and also negotiation and interview prep. So there's lots of ways, and I think the best places to start if you're interested in looking at any of those are my website, maureenpaley.podia.com, and also my link tree on Instagram. And I'm most active, I would say, on Instagram at Maureen Paley Coach. Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are what we're working on, and I'm having fun. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put all those links in the show notes so people can click on them. And then when I'm posting on Instagram at my.yoga.audio, I will link to your account so people can find you easily there too, because I already know that the 13th and 14th I'm going to be out of town at a conference, but I'm like, that sounds so good. Like everything you're off, it's what people need. And having just gone through some pretty intensive interview processes myself, I like to think of myself as a prepared, but they were vastly different. Kind of they kind of tended to go one way or another way, and I was as the kind of and I think you are too, like personable person and like reading body language and stuff. And then when you're on Zoom and kind of removed, I was like unprepared for those who are
yes,
have a complete wall in front of their faces. So yeah, there's so much to be gleaned for how to navigate the corporate or non-corp, whatever, the interview world, right? When we're dealing with this extra layer of Zoom and social skills and body language. And so that's wonderful news to hear with the resume and cover letter help. I think that's a pain point for a lot of people. It's like, I know I'm qualified. I can apply for this job, but like, how do I make them pick me?
And you are, and we can do that together. There's
Yeah.
really, that's a big fun when I love working on resumes and cover letters with people, because we get to make you shine. So it's a lot of fun.
That's the best part. Maureen, you're just like an absolute joy. We've seen each other a couple of times in person, even after the book club thing. And you've always been such an engaged person. And, it's just obvious to me that you're really authentic and passionate about what you do and wanting to help other women. And so it's just a perfect fit for this show. And I think I'm so glad that I know you and can kind of help share what you're doing in the world. And even Mabel, I'm so glad Mabel made the video, so she'll be on YouTube.
She's over here sneezing, so listeners are going to hear her like doing these heavy sneezes.
Oh, no, that was the best. I always worry about my dogs, but I love it when everybody else comes in, because mine are barky. When they're awake, they tend to be barky. But yeah, is there anything else you'd want to share with listeners before we close out and let Mabel have you back to herself?
Well, I thank you for creating this space for your community. I think, I've listened to some episodes and I've just been like, okay, like, especially when it started making sense. Like, I would really love to be a guest on this show because there's a lot of things that are lining up. And I think our community is really lucky to have you and your voice. And yeah, so thank you. Much appreciated. And what I would tell listeners is, keep on keeping on, and being out there and making the world a better place and support women.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for all the work you're doing and your voice for sharing and wanting to be part of this My Yoga Audio family, where we're just trying to integrate more and more about our wild experience in this world and live our best life in the most positive sense, not just the hashtag sense, but like, like,
yes,
how can we truly pass earn and save and create generational wealth, and so that we can live well and our friends, chosen family can continue to benefit and learn from us too, right? So that it gets better for everyone who comes after us. So thank you, Maureen, and
Thank you.
listeners. Yeah, thanks for tuning in with us. I really want to encourage you to connect with Maureen online, checking out her website as well as on Instagram. Like I said, I'll put all that in the show notes and tag her in the posts. So stay tuned for our next episode. We have another exciting guest coming up, and it's going to be another totally different topic again, but somebody else who's doing great work in community and is a survivor of domestic violence and has really done some incredible, amazing things. She's like going to Hollywood, guys. So, and I just said guys, I meant to say everyone. But yeah, so at My Yoga Audio, we always like to close by saying it's a great time for your mind and your body to be on the mat wherever you may be, and whether it's a physical yoga mat or whether you're experiencing yoga in a different way in the world. So thank you for tuning in. Take care till next time, and say bye to Mabel and Maureen with me. Take care, everyone.